Well, I'm going to do the obligatory plugging the channels. And again, please consider supporting this channel with channel memberships where you get extra content. And yeah, there's a lot more extra here. I'm just going to do the very basic story. And originally, I really did think, okay, this is going to be more like a parody video, but I don't think this is a parody. The parallels are pretty alarming. Although I will say that Mr. Cantwell is now fairly normal step A to step B to step C, going from whatever extreme conservative to outright fascist. Now, I've made the claim that Aaron Smith-Levin is a fascist and terrorist because we have a lot of evidence. He even records himself getting violent, doing temper tantrums, and often crying fits. And I will say one of the recent ones seems to be legit, although, again, and this is like probably the last time we're going to be nice to Aaron, he was asking for money on behalf of some child who allegedly was traumatized in an accident. And again, Aaron, as usually does, went into this big crying fit and spell. But then, of course, next video, he's totally happy again. In fact, even in that video, when he was crying over allegedly this child, he was pretty happy at the end of the same video. So you're like, was that really about the child or himself? And that brings us to Mr. Cantwell, who you will probably know by Googling crying Nazi. So for those who need a refresher, wait, who's this guy? Several years ago, there was a very controversial right-wing crisis where this Unite the Right rally occurred in the South. And Cantwell joined as this one of these alt-right figures, and he kind of became world famous for a little while because he was featured in a famous Vice documentary. Again, they did not intend for this to happen because, it's fairly normal now to do documentaries on Nazis and fascists and so on and so forth. But this is before the Unite the Right rally turned very violent and an activist was killed. Now, I don't want to even get into her or her name because, again, there's like conflicting stories. She was actively fighting the rightists, but she was, to put it mildly, on the more liberal side, and she died tragically. And it was just a very violent, ugly affair. And Cantwell was actually bragging to the documentary journalist who he spoke with, who, by the way, had a recent run-in with Candace Owens. I know, it's weird how all these things are interlinked. And if you become a channel member, I'll get into it because it is a fascinating, weird web with all these extreme rightists, Zionists, Nazis, and even Iranists plays a bit role here. So anyway, Cantwell became world famous, was basically kicked off a lot of platforms, and subsequently got into a lot of legal troubles. Now, this is where it gets really weird because as a part of him becoming even more radical and crazy, even on right-wing sites, like there was this thing called Gab, basically a very extreme right-wing version of Twitter, which is now kind of a joke because Twitter is very extreme right-wing. But back then, Twitter was somewhat more mindful of people, praising Hitler. So anyway, he was so radical, he was kicked off of there too. So having very few friends or supporters, he finally came out and confessed out of nowhere because as a part of his conspiracy theory, he thinks or believes there's this massive conspiracy to destroy him. Why? Don't know. And he outed himself out as gay and a homosexual because apparently his enemies, again, among the radical right and Nazis, knew he was gay and were using this information against him. So he decided to go full-blown, yes, I am gay. He has dated women and been with women. Oh, that's another thing which links him to Iranist too, by the way. It gets even more weird because some of the women he was with were not white, even though he was an outright racist. And there you go. And now apparently Cantwell is writing, I'm not joking, bisexual erotic fiction. And there you go. Now you might say, where is the parallel or link or even really stunning coincidences with Aaron? Now, Aaron's story is very hard to tell because he keeps lying about it. But the brief course with him is that he joined Scientology at a young age. His mother was in Scientology, and he stayed with it for quite a while. He took a small break, then rejoined Scientology and joined the fanatical Sea Org militant kind of church within a church of the Church of Scientology. Spent several years there, made a lot of money, frankly, as a public Scientologist. So he left the Sea Org and remained a Scientologist, started doing spy work for Mike Rinder and other, quote, allegedly at the time, anti-Scientologists. But I think now it's very questionable if Rathbun or Rinder were really ever anti-Scientologists. But in any case, eventually, Aaron left all of Scientology, spoke out against it, at first very nicely and calmly, very moderately, but more and more he became very radicalized. Not in terms of anti-Scientology, I don't think that's what's going on, but promoting this kind of one-man messianic cult, committing all these crimes, getting addicted to drugs, having all these affairs, lying about it, and even apparently stealing from the charity he co-founded with Rinder called the Aftermath Foundation. So after all these scandals and lies were getting exposed, Aaron got very angry and started this massive civil war with Rinder and a lot of his ex-friends, and we've been sort of coping with this for several years now. So where are the points of contact? Well, it's very, very interesting at almost all levels. One is the crying Nazi meme thing, is that Aaron has this tendency all the time to get into these weird, crying, tearful fits. And I've gone back with even subscribers who don't like Aaron, hate him probably more than I do, that they would grant that they think he's being sincere. But given the sheer enormity of times that he does it, sort of in a very mechanical, overbearing manner, I don't think it's real. But it is interesting that for the camera, he does like to cry a lot. So it's very, very strange. So why do I think that Aaron may go down the gay Nazi crying route? Well, aside from the crying, there's a lot of unfortunate parallels and similarities. So this is a message from Chris Cantwell a long time ago. I have to be very careful with the language because of YouTube censorship, but I think people can put together what I'm saying. He wrote, all white men should hunt down and mercilessly kill as many trannies, F-word, N-word, K-word, the K-word is aimed at Jews, and cucks as they possibly can in the new hit game Angry Goy 2. And then he's promoting his thing, Radical Agenda. He kept changing the name of his podcast. I don't even know if Radical Agenda still exists. So Aaron is also very paradoxical in that way that he declares himself to be, well, to put it mildly, vehemently anti-gay. He jokes about gays, makes all these homophobic jokes. He'll even make homophobic jokes in front of homosexuals, like his former friends, Serge Delmar and Nora. And they're on record that they don't like Aaron. They don't like what he was up to, didn't like a lot of his comments, find his jokes distasteful. And one really bizarre joke, Aaron joked that he allegedly had been abused as a child by some disabled person. This is all fiction. It never happened. But he thought it was really hilarious and kept laughing at himself. And that was too much even for Serge, who likes to invent a lot of things in his life and is a former friend of the Masterson family. Yeah, that's all recorded and pictures exist of that, so that's pretty insane. But he found Aaron's jokes a little bit too much after a while, and he online dissented from laughing along at these kind of jokes and eventually left his fake weird charity called the SPTV Foundation. The same thing happened with Nora, another former homosexual friend who basically got tired of all the gay jokes, and Aaron insulting her and demonizing her and citing her as the reason that there's so much negativity among ex-Scientologists. It's all because of her. Added to this is that among the many affairs Aaron had, one of them was with a non-white woman. Although that one is very weird and speculative. We know it happened, but we don't know the details, even though Aaron, again, more than a few times, does let himself out with his racism and even bizarrely anti-Semitism, even though he's partially Jewish, but likes working with anti-Semites and even outright Nazis. I want to be careful there because the Nazi end of it is with knife hoarder, and that's more by proxy. But I have no doubt Aaron is aware because he works closely with Marilyn, and Marilyn H.O. does work with the Nazi. And since Aaron is constantly on that channel, even mods for the channel, I have no doubt he's aware of that link. Although, interestingly, the Nazi doesn't like Aaron, and has actually made fun of him a few times. But there you go. You got to find allies where you can find them. There's also a lot of other parallels in that both Aaron and Mr. Cantwell are very well invested in the gun and drug culture. Although I will be fair that Aaron is not into guns with the same obsession that Cantwell is. But with drugs, yeah, they are very well aware of drugs, put a lot of drugs in their body. even hang out with and support free drug use. Though Aaron there is a little bit worse than Cantwell because a notorious former friend was Tommy Scoville, who routinely brags about his drug past and how he was a drug dealer, drug user, constantly shipped drugs into the U.S. illegally, and apparently never got caught for one major crime that he himself, he admits this, would have gone to jail for over 40 years. What that crime is, we don't know. We're speculating that it would have to be a pretty ugly crime to get put away that long. Now, of course, not every gun-toting racist homophobe is secretly a gay Nazi in disguise and gonna become one. That's true. And Aaron has only, from a certain angle, gotten started on the Cantwell path, right? Cantwell apparently had legal problems even as a teenager, right, with drugs and assault, fraud, and so on. And that just followed him throughout the years. Constant DUIs, encounters with the law, and getting very violent. Aaron is not as bad, but he is facing 2 charges of simple battery and assault, right? But again, you got to look a little closer because he was caught on camera throwing a woman against a wall. But the woman, for whatever reason, never charged Aaron. So he has committed a lot of crimes, which he has not been charged for or indicted for, but he is guilty of. In fact, we know this for a fact because we have a P. Diddy tape that shows he is a criminal. So it's a very weird thing that several times he's been caught by the police and others committing crimes, but sometimes is not getting charged. So it's unclear what level we'd have to say his criminality is, right? And to be fair, I don't know officially, so I have to say YouTube, right, rules. I'm speculating he still uses drugs regularly, but really we don't have any evidence he's off drugs or even has gone to therapy or is committed to being sober. I would admit sometimes he does appear inebriated, but other times he seems more calm and collected, but it's a little bit all over the place. So I'll have to wait and see there. So again, I don't know what to term this. This is a cautionary tale that if you enter this very weird world of extreme right-wing anti-Semitic politics, gaydom, guns and drugs, and just being a jerk online, you will end up this disillusioned fascist moron. But I am stating as a set of facts that it's pretty amazing that there's a lot of overlap. Probably the only major difference is the gun culture thing. Like, Cantwell really was into guns. I mean, obsessed with guns. Aaron doesn't seem to be as radicalized in that way. But again, we don't know if we're seeing the beginning of a new crisis with Aaron or maybe he's going to turn his life around. I think he's not going to turn his life around, frankly. So there we go.